State Representative Beth Lear. Thank you so much for joining me on Message from the House.
Very excited to, Olivia. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I am excited to talk with you. You have several pieces of legislation. I always feel like I'm in awe of how hard you work and your passion for what you do. So I'm excited to talk.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There's so much we need to be working on, so I'm glad to have an opportunity to share it with the folks of Ohio.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to start just by asking a little bit about your background and your district. Tell folks, about where you live, how long you've been in the legislature, anything about you that you'd like to share.
Oh, goodness. We could be here for hours, but I won't do that to you. Seriously, I'm a Delaware County girl, so I'm really honored to be able to represent northern and eastern Delaware County and western Knox, which is an absolutely beautiful area, Centerburg to Fredericktown. And I grew up there, went to Olentangy when it was one building, K through 12.
Wow. Yeah.
Graduated from The Ohio State University with a degree in international relations, actually, not political science. Had no intention of getting involved in politics at all. But when I was leaving the Ohio Air National Guard, there were openings. Republicans had made great gains, and they needed people to work in the offices. So I started down there, which just really convinced me I would never run for office. And yet, when you get that kind of background, people ask you to, and when they trust you, they ask you to get involved. And so that's why I'm here now.
Yeah, that's incredible. I am from Hilliard, like we had talked, and I went to Findlay. And driving through that area, you can just tell how much Delaware and Knox and all of those areas have really grown in the last couple of years.
Grown and are growing. And so I know that's going to lead us into our topic, which
Absolutely.
the property tax issue is really affecting the people in my district. And that has been something I have been trying to work on since I was first elected in 2022. And of course, legislation is not something you can do quickly, especially when it's as large and complicated as property tax. But I'm working on it with some of my colleagues, and we're not going to give up until we get something substantive.
Absolutely. And, you're working on several different passion projects, I would say. Like I said, I think that that's one of the really admirable traits about you and other folks in the legislature. Why have property taxes taken your focus, especially this General Assembly?
People in my district are hurting. I mean, they are all over Ohio. I know that. But when you're growing really fast, and Delaware County has a lot of people who've lived there for decades and decades. I mean, we still, believe it or not, have agricultural areas with big farms and old farm families. And the amount of growth and the quality of growth has just caused our property taxes to balloon. I remember years ago, when I was knocking doors and somebody said, could you do something about property taxes? We pay $1,000 a month.
Wow.
That was in 2010. So you can imagine 15 years later what it's like for these people. And I want to see, especially the grandmas and grandpas, I'm a grandma. I want to see these folks be able to stay in their homes as long as they want. The government should not be able to take anybody's home because they can't afford to pay their taxes.
Absolutely. And I think that that's great that you put that in perspective, that this is not just a 2025 issue. I know we're hearing about it a lot right now, but you're saying that this was beginning a decade plus ago.
Oh, yes. It's largely out of control government spending, right?
Yeah.
But then Ohio also has the issue where we have so many taxing jurisdictions, and it's all of these different governmental entities get a bite at the property tax pie, not the state, interestingly.
Yeah.
But the locals do, and you even have some organizations that are allowed to put levies on the ballot, but there's no elected official oversight. So we're talking library districts, health districts, things like that. And so we need to rein that in.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because talking with Representative Thomas a couple months ago, that was the big piece of it, is our taxing system is so unique and complex, which makes it very difficult to find solutions. I want to ask about your bill specifically with Representative Ritter. I know you have a couple property tax bills in the work, but I do want to start with that one and just ask where it stands and what it would tackle.
So Representative Kevin Ritter from down in the Meigs County area, he was a county commissioner, and he understood it from that perspective. And so we talked about what could we do to make sure that all entities that have access to our property tax dollars have to go through the process of being evaluated by an elected board or something before they can go to the ballot. And the elected officials need to have the authority to say, yes, we approve you going on the ballot, or no, you don't need that money, and we're not going to let you ask the taxpayers for it. So we put together a bill that would do exactly that, and we're reining in all of the extraneous organizations just to make sure that the people who pay taxes have a voice through their elected officials. We expect to be introducing that within the next few weeks. And so when we get back to work in October, that bill should have a number, and hopefully we'll be working on it in Ways and Means.
And there are a couple others, like I mentioned, that have been introduced that you're working on. I know one with Representative Thomas, who is spearheading, I think, the property tax issue along with you and other vocal members in our caucus, which is great. Is there one of the couple that sticks out to you, or are they all equally as important at tackling this issue?
Well, this is such a big issue. You really can't do it with one piece of legislation. We tried with the budget to at least get some major changes through. And I have to say, even before we talk about my legislation, I was really impressed with our new leadership when we were going through the budget before we introduced our House version officially. We talked about it, and one of the things that I shared with my fellow Republicans was I love all the things we're doing in our budget mostly, but I wanted to help my property owners. And when I said I couldn't support a budget that didn't help property owners, our caucus staff, our leadership immediately went to work. 1 week later, the version of the budget that we voted on had $4.2 billion in savings for property owners. I've never seen leadership respond so well to the concerns of their caucus members and the concerns of Ohioans. I was deeply, deeply grateful. And so that's why I supported the budget, because the budget was helping the people in my district, right?
Absolutely. And before we talk about your legislation, too, I will make sure I store that when we come back to it, because you are working on great things. The override effort and the vetoes. I think that takes us to a really good spot there. Why was that so important for you to be a part of this summer? I know folks are traveling. You finally get a break. You're doing other things with your time. Talk about that effort.
Well, that's our job.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put the people of my district first, unless there's some sort of family emergency or terrible illness. And for goodness sakes, we had members who didn't even let those things stand in their way. I mean, Representative Ritter was supposed to be in Italy chaperoning a trip with his daughter, and he went late so that he could be here for those overrides. And Representative Diane Mullins, who had suffered a serious health issue just a few months earlier, called the speaker to say, I will be there, you tell me when. So I think that was heart-wrenching, because we only were able to override one veto, but we're not finished. And we're talking about bringing more up as soon as we come back into session in October. So I hope we'll be successful, because we need both reform and relief right away.
Absolutely. And, talking about that one that was overridden, right? Obviously, there were a couple that we were all hoping to get done. What do you think that shows about the Ohio House majority right now?
Well, even being able to get one, that's encouraging. And I know the speaker and the leadership are working really hard to try to impress upon others the necessity of supporting our property owners. One of the things that I heard when I was in my own district recently, and it's hearsay, I don't have proof, but we're working to get the woman to testify in committee. But I was told that a woman who had worked in Franklin County at the homeless shelters said the woman's shelter was 90% filled with elderly women who could no longer afford to pay their property taxes and lost their homes.
Wow.
That was a devastating comment to me. I had no idea the numbers would be that big. And again, we need to verify that that's accurate. So, I've requested an opportunity to sit down and talk with them and bring them in to tell committee what they're seeing. Because if that's factual information, I think the people of Ohio deserve to hear it. And especially my colleagues in the legislature need to know we've got to act. We can't wait.
Absolutely. And you're acting, I guess I'll circle back that way with your bills. If you want to talk me through a couple of the ones in addition to the one with Representative Ritter that you are working on.
Sure. So Representative Tex Fisher and I have a constitutional amendment. It would cap the amount that any property owner pays at 1.25% of their value. And for 65 and older, it would cap it at 1%. So they would be paying less once they hit that retirement age. And that's a good piece of the puzzle, but it's like a tourniquet when we're bleeding profusely in so many other areas. So it's one piece of many, right? The other piece of legislation that Rep. Thomas and I will be introducing came from my own county auditor, George Kaitza, who is awesome, by the way. And George said, we have to get a handle on these rising valuations that are causing people's taxes to increase so quickly. And so his idea was, can we please just have a moratorium so that for the next 3 years, we have no value increase affecting people's taxes? And I talked to David Thomas about it since he was a former county auditor. I don't know if everybody knows or not. And he said, absolutely, let's do that. So we immediately got to work with our bill drafters, and we should have that bill back next week and introduce it shortly thereafter. So I'm hopeful. But again, what that does, it's just a temporary break, right? So it gives us time to work on the issue, and it will stop people from hemorrhaging dollars every year when their property taxes go up in January.
I love all of this. I think that it sends a really strong message that the Ohio legislature is working on property tax reform, right? It didn't just stop in the spring. It's ongoing.
Yes. And I mean, there are so many more bills than just the ones that I have.
Yeah.
We've got to deal with this 20 mil floor issue. That allows people's taxes to go up without a vote.
Wow.
Same thing with inside millage. Their taxes automatically go up. And we're seeing it. You just can't do that anymore. The break that we had that was protecting us was House Bill 920. And we have just broken right through that protective measure, and it's no longer effective. So we have to take it seriously because there is a very real possibility that we're going to have a ballot initiative up probably next fall that says we're going to eliminate property taxes altogether. And if we can't show the people of Ohio that we're serious and we recognize their issue is real and we're going to try to do something about it, they're going to vote for this. And I understand it. And then we're going to have very short period of time to figure out how are we going to fund services.
I think it's important to show folks that you are all working on it. It is top of mind, along with, a couple other big pieces of legislation. But I would say property tax, that's been the, if you could think of one legislative term other than the energy, I think the energy bill was big too.
House Bill 15 was great.
Yes, for sure. But it's definitely been energy and property taxes. And this has been a conversation that's been going on since January.
Yes.
When we were all cold in Deer Creek. It was cold that week.
It was very cold.
Yes.
Nothing like the summer we're having now where it's been absolutely hot
I know.
all summer.
In September, too. What day is it? Mid-September, and we're having 80-degree days in Central Ohio. I'm such a warm weather gal, though, that it's good for me. Do you have a favorite season?
Yeah, I like winter. I like snow.
Oh, my goodness. You like winter?
I do.
Okay, well, we're in the right place then. Especially Delaware. I'm sure it's so beautiful in the winter.
When it snows, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask, maybe to wrap us up a little bit, what's next? And what would you say if, for folks in your district that are watching this directly, if you have a message for them or how they can help or get in contact with you? But what is next, I think, is the best way to wrap things up.
Well, next for me legislatively or?
Probably both.
So we're working on a lot of different areas of legislation. I mean, my background actually is education policy.
Yeah.
That's where I worked when I left the legislature at the Buckeye Institute as their education policy analyst. And that's another major issue for people. When I talk to them, property taxes is number one, but education issues are number two. So there are some things that we would like to do differently, and we would like to make it cost less. And we also want to make sure that parents have the absolute final say over what's going on with their children's education. We started fixing that with House Bill 8 last year, but there's more to do. So we'll be looking into those issues, changing the testing system, something I'm working on with the chair of education, Representative Fowler Arthur. And we'll be sending out a co-sponsor today based on the horrible activities of last week. We need to be able to protect ourselves. And it's legislation that's not just for elected officials. That should never be a thing. We need all of the people of the state of Ohio to have the absolute unequivocal right to protect themselves and their family and their property. So we're going to be introducing the Ohio Self-Defense Act to make sure that we're improving the protections for those who are protecting their loved ones. And hopefully my fellow members will get that later today.
Yeah. Such a diverse set of issues. I think it's amazing that you're trying to tackle all of it. I think also the education is so fitting when we're seeing all of these school report cards coming out and, maybe not as high as we had hoped. So I think that is also an important issue. State Representative Beth Lear, thank you so much for joining me.
It's my privilege, and I'm glad to be able to have a chance to share some of the things that are going on with the people in my district and Ohio.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Quickly up for our social media, you can follow us on Ohio House GOP Caucus on Facebook, Ohio House _GOP on Instagram, and OHR GOP Caucus on Twitter. You can also subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. The Ohio legislature is working on property taxes.
Yes, we are.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Olivia.